What should education institutions like us or education itself truly prepare students for?
We're living in a highly uncertain world in which the uncertainty itself, we are uncertain about what the uncertainty is about. Unknown unknowns.
So what is one uncomfortable truth about our education system that we are kind of unwilling to confront right now?
The uncomfortable truth that we are making our entire education system into a vocational system to produce more resources, human resources for the economy. Okay, that's it. We are not producing better citizens and better human beings.
Good morning, everyone. It is a pleasure to have all of you joining us from across the campuses, and it is such a privilege to host Mr. Arun Maira as part of Breaking Mazes. The idea of Breaking Mazes is to go beyond the lectures and discussions that take place inside the classrooms and connect the policymakers, industry leaders with the students to think how can we go beyond the discussions that are taking place inside the classrooms. And today's topic, and it is actually focusing on that only question, in a sense, looking about the future of education and how do we engage students for future, how do we train students for future. That's why the topic we are talking about, reimagining education for an uncertain future, work, values, human capability. And it is such a great pleasure to have Mr. Arun Maira, someone who brings rare perspectives shaped by his work in government, in policy making, institution, corporate sector. So Mr. Maira has actually worked, with the Tata consultancy for around 25 years. Then he has held leadership roles in Boston Consulting Group, has worked as member of Planning Commission, also served as chairman of Helipage, besides Quality Council of India, Save the Children, Axis Bank Foundation. He has also served as the chancellor of Himachal Pradesh University. And besides all these positions which Mr. Maira held, he has been a prolific writer. We all have benefited from his writings and through his lectures, his talks in different platforms across the world. Some of the works he has produced, published, the Learning Factory, how the leaders of Tata became nation builders, the transforming system, why the world needs a new ethical toolkit was another book. Then he also wrote a beautiful book on reimagining Indian economy, the road to more equitable society, like many other works. So besides that, Mr. Maira has also given a lot of interviews through podcasts, through delivered talk at World Economic Forum, and given lots of interviews on televisions. And today we are actually absolutely privileged to have you a part of this Breaking Mazes discussion leadership series. Thank you, sir, for joining us.
Pleasure, Professor.
So, if the future is uncertain, itself is uncertain, what should education institutions like us or education itself truly prepare students for? If we can start with that question.
The future is uncertain. ये नई बात नहीं है. It's not a new thing. We have at least for the 10-15 years now, at least in management schools and policy circles, saying there's a new phenomena we said called VUCA. People might remember volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. I mean, we love to put jargons and acronyms to a phenomena which could be understood more with common sense. Anyway, we're living in a highly uncertain world in which the uncertainty itself, we are uncertain about what the uncertainty is about. Unknown unknowns. And with the recent changes in the global geopolitics, it's become, at the moment, even more uncertain. So what will happen if and when Donald Trump ceases to try to control the whole world? What will happen? What sort of world will emerge? These must be questions that all students particularly must be thinking about. Because I have, at my age of 82, been through a lot of uncertainty, but never something so radical. Yes, but yes, up and down. I've been a long life and long career too. But these young people are going to be confronting a world which maybe I've never experienced myself. And none of the teachers, their teachers have experienced it. You see. So what can they learn from their teachers and what can they learn from me? I think, and this is the point, right? That it's a very uncertain world and they are going to have to make sense of it themselves. And we can't give them solutions. We can give them ways to think about uncertainty, think about how you steer yourself through uncertainties.
Yeah.
Okay? And one thing is very clear that the world is a very competitive world. Nations are competing with each other, and better, stronger. That's what the whole present geopolitics is entirely about. And in business, it's entirely about being more competitive than your competitor. And previously, before globalization, your competitors were within your own country, and you understood them, and you could
Yeah.
even talk their language. With globalization, your competitors come from anywhere.
Yeah.
You don't even know that suddenly, from some other country, some people with a different culture in your business become better than you are. And you have to compete with them for global markets. And even in your own market, they come here and you got to compete with them. So competitive world and the ability to be successful in a competitive world. And then we come to individuals and students. They are also under great pressure to compete, get the best course in which they will be better off than others. And in after that, I will get the best opportunities at the highest salaries, right? And it's a competition to succeed. So if at all levels, between nations and between organizations and between individuals, it's competition, competition in an uncertain world. So the only strategic advantage anybody can have, a sustainable advantage, is the ability to learn and improve yourself faster than all potential competition. Otherwise we'd say my competition is people within my same discipline, engineering ke sab hain. But now you're finding people from other disciplines competing for
Yeah.
the same jobs. You say my competition is within my industry. All the FMCG firms are who I compete with. Then you find Amazon and others are encroached in your business. Oh my goodness, they're sort of people I don't understand. Huh? So any potential competition, it could come from anywhere. So given this, the attempt to map the world and say, this is what everybody is and this is what they will do is a fool's game. It's going to be uncertain and it is going to be evolving the way it will evolve. But I, nevertheless, want to be secure, safe, and successful. So, my ability to learn broadly, much more broadly than I am, कि क्या हो रहा है वहाँ क्या हो रहा है दूसरी इंडस्ट्री में क्या हो रहा है दूसरे देश में क्या हो रहा है दूसरे लोगों के मन में क्या हो रहा है this and then the ability to learn myself and acquire new capabilities which I wasn't taught in my formal education is the only way I'm saying to all students that you will live a happy and successful life.
Okay, wonderful. So let me actually build on that. There is a in the school, in the colleges, what we face a bigger challenge this time. There's a disconnect between what we teach right now and what industry offers, and then the bigger disconnect is what would the future look like. How do we bridge this disconnect?
Yeah, I have been observing the last 20 years, particularly uh, in our country, most of all, but now in the US and Europe also, the over vocationalizing of education. Over vocationalizing. That you must learn a skill with which someone will pay you, for which someone will pay you money and give you a job. So we start, breaking down education into separate vocational skills. Which track are you on? Are you going to become old times blue collar work or white collar work? Now, even within white collar work, are you going to be a lawyer? Are you going to be a teacher? Are you going to be a
Yeah.
technology expert? And within each of those, also further specialization. If you're going to learn economics, are you going to be in international economics? Are you going to be in, well, domestic, local economics? Are you going to be in social sciences, and if in social science, which social science, and if it's technology, which technology, is it the IT type or is it the pure science type? You have to choose
Yeah.
more precisely than ever before. At a time when I said you cannot be precise because whether the skill that you presently have or being trained for is going to be required at all, you don't know. So this is a way of we've been doing is industrializing education. In industry, we want every resource that we have to be fit for its specific purpose. Hmm? Well, every human being employed in a large industrial enterprise has to do a particular job and do that job very well. You are a little piece of a larger machine. Each piece of the machine, and you are one of those, must do your job very well. And when the machine doesn't require your skills anymore, so you get left out, thrown out. We don't need these skills anymore. Okay? So, in education, I'm saying it's beginning to match, to mirror as it has to the requirements of the employment world. That, okay, we'll also vocationalize and sharpen what we deliver to you so that you get exactly what you want at the time that you hire. After that, whether you'll need this person anymore, you can't predict, but it's not our responsibility. So we are letting down our young students by industrializing education.
I wanted to come that question later, but I'm glad that you answered it now. That is connected to that question is something. Have we kind of, compartmentalized education in a sense and gone beyond the true sense of education by focusing too much on skills? Normally, I should not be talking about skills because I have led skill development programs, but because there is so much concentration now happening on skill education. We have many skill universities coming up now. Skilling has been almost made part and parcel of conventional education. So are we actually going beyond or narrowing down the purpose of education itself?
Yes, we are. And I'll use, STEM. सब कह रहे हैं कि more STEM education, and even in the US now we need to have more STEM education. Well, what is STEM? Science,
Technology.
technology, engineering, and we कहते हैं mathematics, but it's
Yeah.
management. Science, technology, engineering, and management. So let's go back. Science was sort of made into the only way to run the world by the European Enlightenment in the 17th century. And at that time, the Europeans, discovered that you could do by experimentation and labs and stuff, and you could discover how the natural world really works. Physics is my subject, which I studied until my PhD, I mean my master's. That's it. It's about how non-living systems work. Okay? And Francis Bacon, who's considered one of the authors of the European Enlightenment and the founder of the Royal Society, he said this thing very famously, that with modern science, which is European science, man now has, and it was man only, has the power to control unruly nature. In other words, ये नेचर सब गड़बड़ है, इनफॉर्मल है, नेचर समझती नहीं है वो क्या कर रही है, हम उसको सिखाएंगे,
ठीक है.
and by our science. So this arrogance came that we are superior than nature and we are now going to control nature. And look what has happened now. By our over industrializing, our over scientification and scientific solutions, climate change, environmental degradation are killing us. So in other words, nature is reminding us कि आप अपनी जगह में ठहरो. I'm much bigger and broader and a better learner than you are. ठीक है? So let's come to science. Then science by itself is a study of how things work. It's not useful for actually getting something done. So technology is a child of science. You apply science to real world problems for the purpose of getting exactly what you want out of the real world. Engineering is a subset of technology where you just are not even wanting to devise the new technology, it's the application of it very efficiently. Okay? And then I come to management. Management is, I don't care about all the actual science and stuff. It's I'm going to be making things happen efficiently and produce the maximum profit out of it. So you can see the continuum. So we come in living in a world which is all about personal profit, my enterprise's profit. That's it. And we need managers for that, which is why the management schools became the acme. In my time, there weren't any management schools, some engineering schools that started IITs in India when I was doing my physics. The IITs, some people went, but I must say, they were as good people as the people who went to science, right? Then went on. Soon, 10 years later, came the IIMs. The best students from the IITs, the best, then applied for IIMs. And after IIMs, where did they go to work? In business enterprises to make more profit. For whom? For the business and more money for themselves. So you see how the ethic changed. That my purpose for living is to make money for some employer, right? It changed. The purpose of education must be to question why. But it's now to do and die. All my thing is that I must do it well and then I'll die at the end of my life. During my life, I'll never question why मैं ये कर रहा हूँ, ये दुनिया में क्या हो रहा है. And that's why this Nike slogan, it became popular many years ago, is swoosh. It said, just do it. So when I was in the US and became popular, I was a management consultant and guiding leaders of big corporations in the US and Europe, I would say to young people who said, please develop our young leaders, I'd say, firstly, I know you're wearing Nike shoes and they're very good, the most expensive, and you get most, respect if you're wearing a Nike shoes. But please don't adopt their slogan. Don't just do it. Stop and ask yourself, why am I doing this? Including why am I buying Nike shoes at double the price of other shoes? Why am I doing whatever I'm choosing to do? Why am I choosing to go into this vocational course? What do I expect to get out of it? Obviously, expect to get more money because I'll have the right skills which someone will pay for. Goes back to, you were developing skill programs, and this was the motivation that we wanted to encourage. Sharpen your skills and get a good job and you'll earn money. And this is where I said when you come to VUCA, that model cannot work.
Okay, the question of why we often talk to students is why, especially in the bachelor and master's level, why the point why is so critical for understanding and analyzing anything and around us. So that takes me to the question that is understanding the question of the education, which you started with, that there's not uncertainty is not new. It has been there forever. So if you reflect on your journey, right, did your education prepare you for the kind of assignment, tasks, jobs, and all the positions you held, and with that, the uncertainty it brought in? Or it was that experiential learning that taught you or guided you how to handle such uncertainties?
Yeah, very well said. Our education comes through along two channels. One is the formal education, the industrial education, the industrial education system provides us to prepare us for particular jobs and with particular skills, including management, IB, or engineering. And subsets, as I mentioned, of the engineering. You can be in electronic engineering or mechanical engineering or civil engineering. Okay, so that's the formal education. But there's a life education, which you get by actually observing what is going on around you and struggling with your own questions. मैं क्या करूं, कैसे करूं? And the guidance that you get from people who are not in your formal education system. Your parents maybe, some senior friends, something. The way that they ask you, usually, why are you getting so unhappy about life? Or why are you wanting to do this? That is your real education. So I've been blessed that my formal education, which was in physics in the masters, to sort of go and either, like all the people at my time in college, you did your masters in physics because it's the most difficult course to get admitted into at that time. If you did that, you were the best of the best. And you just spend 1 more year or 2 years or on the side, learn some history. that you could read from the book, and you get 5 papers in the IS
Uh-huh.
exam. So I was on that path. But some, as you say, turning points in life which happened accidentally, and I landed up in the Tata Administrative Service instead of the IAS. The Tata Administrative Service. It wasn't TCS. In the introduction, you said TCS. I never worked in TCS. I worked with
Administrative
Tata
serves. So,
Administrative Service and a variety of real organizations that were learning to do things in India which India couldn't do, like Tata Steel, Tata Motors. That's where I worked. I grew up learning with my leaders and learning to be a better person and a more skillful person myself. Okay? So that informal education, which you get out of whatever you're doing in life, hmm, which you're yourself curious about it, is what you want. Now, children, they're born the best learners. They have to. They suddenly come into a world they've never known. Mother के womb से आए हैं, ये क्या है सब? And they have to survive. So they're very curious, as you know. They start doing things which parents say, no, don't do that. It's very dangerous. But they
yeah.
want to try it to find out for themselves कि उसके होता क्या है. You see, then we kill it. A, for the sake of their safety. That no, don't do it, I'll tell you how. The other is, into education, we compartmentalize everybody. Be more knowledgeable about your very narrow thing. Don't be curious about other disciplines. So, science has broken itself down into smaller parts, social sciences into smaller parts, engineering into smaller parts, like I said, and even management has got financial management, marketing management, all into smaller parts. And no one knows what the others are learning, not interested even. So, curiosity to listen and learn with and from people who are not like you is what we need today, which a child has, but we make a child unlearn that and learn our way. And I think we have to teach students to unlearn what we are teaching them as professors and teachers, which is very hard for a teacher because you want respect. जो मैं कह रहा हूँ करो, समझे ना? So there's a challenge to teachers also in educational institutions that if we really want to be
Yeah.
helping young people to feel good and become happy and secure the rest of their lives, we have to admit very humbly we don't know.
True. Sticking to this question only, is there something like I know there would be lots of things there you would have taken from Mr. Tata. Is there something like specific that you have that has shaped your life in the early training or interaction with Mr. Tata and the Tata leadership?
Yeah, with J.R.D. Tata, I never interacted that much with Ratan Tata because he and I are the same age, and I was in Tata's until he was a junior person my rank till I left Tata's. And then, because J.R.D. Tata was too old, Ratan Tata being Tata, get a Parsi and a Tata, so he became then my company first, Tata Motors, and then, from that a stepping stone into being the chair of the whole group. So I'm talking about what I learned
Yeah,
from J.R.D.
I
Tata.
was
J.R.D. Tata, he founded the Tata Administrative Service, and I knew him personally. He used to interact one-on-one with the, we were very few in the Tata Administrative Service. We were, one a year or none a year. That's how the recruitment was. It wasn't a management training service. As they said, it's a leadership development service where the leaders will develop themselves because we also don't know what they should know. They're younger than us, what skills they will need. But their search for their skills and what they want to do in life must be something that builds a nation and is good for others in their country, especially the poorest people. This was J.R.D. Tata's and the Tata philosophy. Okay, we are a part of India, and India has given us the opportunity to serve India. This was the philosophy. So J.R.D. Tata used to say that when he had to take a tough decision, and he shared it with me and with us, the young TS probationers at the time, management TS officers at the time, okay, when I have to, because we would ask him this question, sir, when you had to take a tough decision as the head of the largest group in India, and in tough times because after independence there weren't enough resources in India, not enough a large enough market, and you're wanting to build big industries for the sake of India, you must have to take many tough decisions. How do you decide what decision you should take? So he said to us, yes, when I have to take a tough decision, I ask myself, what would be good for Tatas and what would be good for India? And if there's a conflict, I will do what is good for India, even if it doesn't feel good for Tatas. Because ultimately, he said, if it's not good for India, how can it be good for Tatas?
Oh, amazing, amazing. Moving from Jadi Tata to you also got to work with Mr. Manmohan Singh, right? Someone who led economic reforms in this country and then became a two times prime minister of this country. Uh, how did that happen? You were joining the planning commission, and what was exactly assignment you did that? How did that lead to reformation? If you could tell us more about that.
Yeah, firstly, I was very surprised that, I was at turned 65 and I'd voluntarily retired as chairman of Boston Consulting. वो कह रहे थे
Uh,
sir, older wisdom, ये
uh,
होता जाता है, taught us with, yeah, you have retirement age, but if we need so badly carry on and it's exception है, उसके बाद we'll apply the rule. It never happens. So I said, no, I'm stepping out. Yes, you are able to carry on, and Boston Consulting Group has now got a good foundation in India, and as you can see, it's done very well. So I don't feel that I've let you down by leaving. In fact, I'm helping you because you'll find your own feet and get your own confidence. I'm leaving. So I'm 65. I said now I'm going to retire, कहते हैं, और दुनिया देखेंगे, travel करेंगे अपनी wife के साथ. And just that same month or 2 months later, I get a call from Dr. Manmohan Singh, who had just become prime minister for the second time. This is in 2009. Okay, have to reform the planning commission. Every time the prime minister has to reform his cabinet and his planning commission. And I want to invite you to become a member of the planning commission to serve the country. He used these words. Would you? So I didn't have time to consider कि planning commission है क्या है. Would you serve the country? I said,
yes.
yes, sir. But then it occurred to me, I asked him, sir, planning commission? I'm not an economist. I've never worked in government. You probably got the wrong person, sir. मेरा नाम है ARUN Arun or MAIRA Maira. So आप शायद, I'm sorry, sir, but maybe your advisors gave you the wrong name or something. He said, smiled at me. He said, no, I know who you are.
Okay.
I know you're not an economist. We have so many economists in the country, including myself, he said, but the way we are developing our country, applying modern economic theories, it is not benefiting the people. Industry already have, we feel very happy, there's more service exports and all the rest of it. Yeah, and wealth बढ़ रही है, shareholder market wealth बढ़ रही है. But I don't think the incomes of the people in the bottom 50% of our, or even 90% of our pyramid are rising sufficiently, and that they are getting enough freedom to get the jobs and the type of work that they would like to do. This is not good. The economic theories are wrong. So that's why, because you're not an economist, I want you to say, what are the wrong theories we are applying in our planning? Okay? And also, since you're not in the government, I want you to be very clear that I don't want to carry on the way planning has been done for the last 70 years. It has to be done differently. You've been a consultant in transformation of enterprises to large
Yes.
enterprises in the US and in Europe. How does an institution transform itself? And I want the planning commission people to wake up that they're not serving the country and they must transform the way they think about themselves and their responsibilities and the way they do planning. So that is why I get you. And by the way, I know you. So I've got this picture behind me.
Yeah, it's there.
Maybe
It's
see it, of me giving my book to Dr. Manmohan Singh in Vigyan Bhavan at the annual general meeting of CII, Confederation of Indian Industry in Vigyan Bhavan. And it was the first copy of my book just published at the time called Transforming Capitalism, Business Leadership to Improve the World for Everyone. And in that book, I had included as an annexure the speech that Dr. Manmohan Singh had given to CII at the previous AGM a
okay.
year before, where he had given to industry 10 commandments for business
Okay.
leaders, right? And they didn't like it because what he was telling them is don't spend money on yourself in a country where people are so poor. Do not have expensive
Okay.
weddings. Do not go on expensive holidays. That time, 2007. Please don't do this.
Okay.
Please look at the conditions of others in your country. Take people into your organizations who don't know the skills yet, but who want to learn. Pay them. give them the opportunity to serve you for many years, they will be very loyal to you and they'll build your enterprise. The
Yeah.
Tata philosophy. This is what he said. But it was modern ideas of globalization and the stock market wealth and so on. The industry people didn't like it, the CII. So he was then, a bit unhappy with them. So to make up with him, when I wrote this book with the annexure, I was requested by the president of CII, Sunil Mittal, Arun, could you please make up with this, sir. Here's this book, we want to give the first copy to you. So he produced the book. He said, I know who you are and what you care about, your values. And I want you to make this business management crowd, this industry crowd, this stock market crowd, understand that they are trustees of the country that has given this opportunity.
That is actually the time when we should bring in something that you have been always advocating about is a human capability, right? We probably, Dr. Singh was also talking about that during the larger picture of it, and you've been advocating that. Uh, does our system kind of tend to overlook that human capability, angle, whether it is nurturing, running, or the institutions, or building that human capabilities?
Human beings are the only assets that any society has that can appreciate their own value. All other assets that we have, land, buildings, and intellectual property also, their value depreciates over time, which is why in accounting, corporate accounting, we show assets on the balance sheet and you have to put a depreciation charge into your
Yeah,
profit and loss account because they have to be
absolutely.
replenished. Where do we show human beings in a corporate account? Not in the balance sheet at
Yeah,
all as assets. They're shown
yeah,
only in the revenue account.
absolutely.
Yeah? You just take their effort, you pay for their effort or their knowledge when they
Yeah,
come to work, and if you don't need it anymore, throw it out. Yeah? Whereas, as I say, unlike machines and buildings who don't have a motivation to improve their own abilities,
yeah,
human beings have. Yes, the aspiration to be better makes them the only appreciating assets that a nation has or an organization has. And our duty is towards human beings is to provide them an environment in which they can flower themselves, give them the opportunities to make mistakes. Okay, don't throw them out when they make a mistake. Help them to reflect and learn why did you think that you didn't do it well? So human beings ask themselves, why? Why? Now, machine learning and human learning, there's one difference. Huh? In machine learning, it's the same thing. It asks itself, it didn't work well last time, I'm going to make it happen better next time. Except human beings ask for the purpose of it.
true.
Why am I spending my life on this? I don't think an artificial intelligence agent says,
Spending
why am I
life on
spending my
it,
life on this?
absolutely. Brilliantly, put. Uh, that is, can we also talk about something about, there is, of course, we are seeing there is a challenge in education system, yet there are lots of initiatives that have been taken in terms of transforming education in this country. Some of the initiatives you were also involved, and many people were involved. Recently we got the new kind of framework that is NEP, new education policy framework, which again bridges conventional wisdom as well as vocational education, then also changes the whole examination pattern. What Manu, what's your take on this? Is it enough or we need to do more?
Dr. Kasturi Rangan was my colleague in the Planning Commission. He was the only other person who did science, you know, chairman
Okay.
of space, you know him. And he did then, he was the chair of the National New Economic Policy
Okay.
Commission.
Okay.
Sadly, he's passed. वो हैं तो हमारे साथ थे planning commission में, and in the planning commission, they were developing lots of models on how to measure the economy, Indian growth rates, and what should be where resources should be allocated. So we were invited, he and I, as scientists who understand
Okay.
modeling, hmm, to see what all these economic think tanks, NCAR, ICRIER, Brookings, वगैरह, were presenting to the Planning Commission that we have the best model for the Indian economy. So we were sitting, both of us, in this conference room, people presenting one after the other. And all we were seeing on the screen were, numbers and graphs and stuff. And, my model is better than someone. And Dr. Kasturi Rangan, who is a little older than me, turns to me and says, Arun, do you understand what they're saying? I said, I don't think so. He said, Arun, I don't think they understand what they are saying. I mean, what is the model for? Okay, that's one part. Now, why is it so hard to change the model within which we do things and within which we educate others to do things? This is called paradigms. And Francis Thomas Kuhn, he wrote this seminal book on the change of paradigms, scientific paradigms. How the difficulty of changing a scientific paradigm, like Copernicus saying that actually, yeah, the earth goes around the sun and not the other way around, is that there's entrenched power, which is getting its power because it is at the apex of the present paradigm. The priests and all who said, see, earth is the center of the universe. We have been given the right of God to create this church in Rome by God. So we are in control of the world. So anyone who challenges the basic thesis that the earth itself is not in the center of the universe, and therefore, even if you may be at the center of the earth, you're not that
Important,
important.
absolutely.
And so you start canceling exactly. It's about power. Power is derived from keeping a system thinking one way. This
Yeah,
is the only way
yeah,
one
yeah.
should think. So paradigm do not change, even though we know we need a new paradigm, because the people who have got the power from the present paradigm do not want to let go of their power, don't want to be taken off their pedestals. जहाँ हम कहते हैं इतने सियाने हैं, इतने educated हैं, Nobel Prize in economics मिला है, which was given by other Nobel laureates in economics. They all have their little closed circle, and they nominate the next one. Huh? Priests भी ऐसे ही, they convene in the Rome temple and they all choose the next pope. So there's no challenge to the system, right? And so when you come to the national education policy, yes, it was opened up. Societal stakeholders were asked, okay, what do you want out of education? We want, more natural education, more understanding of things more naturally. Kiya. But then to implement it, when you write the textbooks, vagera, who's writing them? The same
Yeah,
old people.
absolutely. As they say, if you always do what you've always done, you will only get what you always got.
Yes,
That is something where again the
yes,
same
yes, exactly.
system. So if we could look, something more candid about, and that is connected to this NEP and education. Uh, if you could probably narrow it down and say, what is one uncomfortable truth about our education system that we are kind of unwilling to confront right now?
Two uncomfortable truths. One I've already mentioned, I think both I've mentioned. Let me repeat them. One is the uncomfortable truth that we are making our entire education system into a vocational
Okay.
system to produce more resources, human resources for the economy. Okay,
Yeah.
that's it. We are not producing better citizens and better human beings.
Okay.
Citizens who care for others rather than caring only for their own success and how much money they will earn. Okay, this is the basic, if I would say, ethical flaw in the system. The other is the one about the type of learning and the capability to learn that we are teaching. As I mentioned already, we are not teaching people how to remain
Yeah.
curious and to find their own new sources of the knowledge that they feel I need. I wasn't taught this. I don't know it. But I'm curious. It could either be for an instrumental reason that if I get it, then I'll be more successful, which is fine also. But other could be I just wonder why things are like the way they are. That's natural science. This is what we are killing by the design of our education systems, in which, like you said, the people who are considered the eminent educationists, they want to be continue to be seen as the eminent educationists. And by the way, I'm saying educational institutions are now being rated, as you know, which is the highest ranked universities, which are the highest ranked IIMs or a management institution. What are the ranking criteria? That the students who came out of it, how much did they earn? even for
Yeah,
universities, right?
absolutely.
So the university says, well, if it's my job to provide in these 3 years or 5 years people a leg up to the next time, then I must prepare people to get the first job at a high salary. Are we creating lifelong learners or just a person who's got the skills to earn the first job? I
You
work
know,
just as
many
a
of our
clerk.
students are now preparing, they're graduating, right? Now there's so much
Yes.
uncertainty happening. Maybe the jobs will not there, and this becomes more of AI brings disruptions. What should they do now? What should they focus on when the maybe I remember like some of the things which I learned in school I were never useful in my jobs or in the college or it brought that matter in the master's level.
You know, in your introduction to me, you said something about philosophy and poetry.
Yeah.
So let me bring in some philosophy and poetry here.
Uh-huh.
I'm first going to quote a poem by Robert Frost, my
Yeah.
favorite poet, and then Mahatma Gandhi, I think the most practical philosopher that the world has had in the last 100 and more years. Robert Frost. This is a poem by Robert Frost, and I lived for 10 years in outside Boston, New England. Um, um, it's a lovely part of the world, most beautiful part of the world in terms of the forests, the waters, the lakes, the sea nearby, the winter season with a lot of snow, the spring, a lot of flowers come. It's just in terms of season and variations and nature, it's probably one of the most beautiful, amongst the most beautiful parts of the world. It's Kashmir hoga aisa. Hmm? This Kashmir doesn't have the
Yeah,
sea
it
next door.
doesn't.
तो क्या करें? I mean, this also has that, you see. So we come to Robert Frost, my favorite poem. I love nature. I was brought up in the hills, went to school in the hills in Sanawar. So I just love the beauty of, wind coming through pine trees and gives me a lot of comfort. Okay, I don't have much money to spend on my pocket money on anything, but I can just sit here and hear the breeze and listen to the world. Huh? So, in that spirit, Robert Frost, the poet, he is a poet of, well, he grew up there and wanted to farm because he said, farming is more natural than, um, writing books and stuff. So he went to his farm in Delhi, and he is there in this autumn time. वहाँ winter's very harsh, like in Kashmir. It's very harsh. Hmm? That when the winter starts to come, it's more harsh than Kashmir actually. It snows much harder, you get snow for much longer. So you have to cut your wood to use inside the house in your fireplaces. And the wood, the time to cut it is in this autumn time, जब मौसम होती है, it's getting very cold. Some days it's very cold and all, but you better take advantage of it. Go out into your farmyard and cut your wood yourself. And you don't get, labor support in the United States. I
Yeah,
mean, over
of
here,
course. Yeah.
people will cut and bring it for you. So he is on his farm, and he is this time coming, and he's relishing the fact that he's cutting his own wood, and he feels that across his fence there are two people looking at him. So he notices that there are two tramps, poor people, who want to earn money, right? And they are saying to him, without saying it to him, why don't you let us cut your wood for you and pay us some money? Hmm? Right? And he feels an obligation that, they need the money. Maybe I should stop doing this which I'm relishing and let them do it. So this is the last paragraph, last stanza of his poem. But yield, who will to that temptation, my object in living is to unite. My object in living is to unite. My vocation and my avocation, as my two eyes make one in sight. My vocation means what I'm required to do and I'm doing, and my avocation, what will really fulfill me and I would like to do. Make them one, as my two eyes are one in sight. For only where love and need are one, and work is play for mortal stakes, is the deed ever really done for heaven's and the future's sakes. So think of your avocation. What would you really care to do, want to do? which will bring the best out of you, not just about your vocation, which you are required to do. Okay? Keep thinking of this
With
question.
that note,
When I come to market,
with
go
that
ahead.
note, I would ask the final question before we move into the classrooms, the seminar halls. And if you were to redesign the education system here, what would you immediately choose to preserve and what would you change without hesitation?
Look, I would keep everything. I'm saying something is missing in the education system. It's very well designed for providing a vocational skills that people do need. That's why I said vocation
Yeah.
and avocation. I think from the very beginning, um, from childhood times, which is part of a new NEP anyway, the children must be made to question their purpose for their existence. Hmm? Why am I here? What good am I for society? How to be a good citizen? Not just a good producer in society. So, what I would add to every education program, and I've been encouraging management schools and I've been chancellor, as you said, a
Yeah.
university. And by the picture behind me is of the Dalai Lama, who was our first chief guest at the university in Himachal Pradesh. It was a new university, central university. And it is this, that ask yourself, what do you care about most in life? And we say that I care for my parents, I care for something. Just keep asking yourself what you care about most in life. And if you find that what you're caring about most in life is about yourself and how much you earn and how much more respect you are getting than others, then I come back to Mahatma Gandhi's Anantodaya principle. He said to all leaders and policymakers, I give you this talisman. And he wrote this a few weeks before he was assassinated to guide through life. When you have to take any big decision, ask yourself how that decision will benefit the poorest person and the least powerful person that you know. E.R.D. Tata was saying something similar, but this is Mahatma Gandhi's Anantodaya. And to practice this Anantodaya every time you start something new in your life, like joining a college or a university or choosing your course, ask yourself, who will benefit the most? Poorest people or me?
Thank you so much, Mr. Mehra. That gives us a great deal to reflect on. What comes through very clearly is that education is not only about preparing for careers, but also importantly to developing the ability to think, which you were just mentioning, understand and respond to the challenges that the world is facing, and how we gonna contribute into that. And there are lots of thoughts that you shared in from last 30 minutes with us. I'm sure all the students would benefit from that, and the faculty, we as an education group would hugely benefit from those thoughts.